Picture this. A young man walks into court with a grin that says, "Nothing here can touch me." And 60 seconds later, he's flipping the bird toward the front of the room, simply because he feels like it. You'd think the story is about him, or about the judge. It isn't, not at first. It's about the man in the third row, aisle seat. 72, pressed shirt, shoes shined like it's Sunday. Name tag from the VA still pinned to his jacket because he forgot to take it off. He holds a thin envelope with shaking fingers, a faded photograph tucked inside, the way some people carry a saint's medal. He's here over something small. A ticket for parking an inch over a faded yellow line outside his apartment. He circled the date on his calendar, put on the good jacket, rehearsed what to say. To him, court is serious. You look people in the eye, you answer straight. But when he steps up to the podium and says, "Good morning, Your Honor," there's the slightest tremor in his voice. Not from the ticket, from something else. From months of feeling people brush past him in stores, talk over him at counters, forget to hold the door. The judge nods, kind eyes, familiar Rhode Island accent. "Morning, sir. Let's see what we've got." The clerk begins to read his citation, and that's when the side door swings open. He hears it before he turns. The thump of sneakers, the hiss of music leaking from wireless buds. A tall kid in a designer hoodie, AirPods in, sunglasses still on inside. Phone in one hand, iced coffee in the other, walking down the aisle like he's late to a brunch, not a hearing. "Sir, please remove your headphones," the clerk calls. The kid doesn't even glance up. He drops into the front row, sprawls out, crosses one ankle over his knee. The music goes louder, a tinny beat you can hear 3 benches back. A couple of older folks shift, brows knitting. The man at the podium feels his cheeks warm, but keeps his eyes on the judge. "Tell me about the parking, Mr. Doyle," the judge says gently. He starts to explain about the faded curb, about the snow pile that pushed him over the line. Behind him, a low snort. A young voice, just loud enough for the room to catch. "We're doing sermons over 6 inches of paint now?" A few people turn. Doyle doesn't. Years of service taught him how to finish a sentence under fire. He grips the edge of the stand a little tighter. The judge's gaze flicks past him, clocks the source, then comes back, expression unchanged but sharpened. They wrap up the facts. Doyle steps aside, heart beating faster than the situation deserves. As he walks back to his seat, he catches the boy's smirk, the look you give background characters in a show you're starring in. The clerk shuffles papers, clears her throat. "Next case," she announces, "State versus Ethan Henderson." The kid in the hoodie uncrosses his legs, stands, saunters toward the same spot Doyle just left. As he passes the clerk's desk, she murmurs, "Phone face down, please." He turns his hand, screen side up, and with that same lazy smile, extends his middle finger toward her chest. Not a joke to a friend, not hidden. A deliberate slow motion, like a tiny flag planted in enemy territory. The sound in the room dies. No coughs, no rustle. Even the music from his AirPods has finally stopped. Judge Caprio doesn't speak. 1 second, 2, 3. In that quiet, every person on those benches feels the floor tilt. This has just stopped being about a rude gesture. This has become a test of what the rules in that room are really worth. The judge breaks the silence without raising his voice. "Sir," he says, eyes on the young man, "step up to the microphone." The kid saunters forward, sunglasses still on, hands in his pockets. He plants himself at the podium like it's a stage. "State your full name," the judge says. He exhales, annoyed. "Ethan Henderson." A murmur flickers through the benches. People know that surname from yard signs and television ads. Third row, Mr. Doyle feels something twist in his stomach. He's voted for that name more than once. The clerk checks the file. "Age 23, she reads. "Address listed as Eastbrook Lane." Several heads lift. That's the gated road up on the hill. "Occupation? Student, Northfield College." Northfield. Tuition that could buy a house every few years. The judge keeps going. matter of fact. Your father is Senator Mark Henderson of this state, correct? Ethan shrugs one shoulder. You watch the news, you know. In the back, Doyle studies him. To him, power always came with duty. Punch clocks, uniforms, long shifts. This boy wears confidence like a brand, not a burden. What the file doesn't show is the rest. Ethan's childhood was chauffeurs and campaign dinners, watching his father shake every hand in the room except his. His mother scheduled affection between fundraisers, measuring hugs like calories. When he was quiet, nobody noticed. When he caused trouble, phones rang, lawyers appeared, statements were drafted. And at last, they looked at him. A beer-fueled dorm video, a busted mailbox, 3 noise complaints. Each time, someone handled it. His name never hit a docket. Until today. This is the first time you've appeared here in person, the judge notes. My clerk informs me there were attempts to address this matter informally. He doesn't say who called. He doesn't need to. At the mention, Ethan's jaw tightens. I'm here, aren't I? He snaps. Whole circus for a ticket. Behind him, Doyle shifts his envelope to the other hand. The judge notices, turns back to the older man. Mr. Doyle, he says, before we move on, is there anything else you'd like to say about your own case? Doyle hesitates, then steps back to the mic, hat held against his chest. It's not about the ticket, Judge, he says quietly. I'll pay if I have to. It's just, lately I walk around this town and feel like I'm not even there. Like rules are for folks my age, and the younger ones just float above them. He searches for words, settles on a plain sentence that lands harder for its simplicity. Seems to me the law's turned into something you aim at the old and the ordinary. A soft murmur of agreement moves through the older faces. From his spot at the podium, Ethan lets out a small laugh. Not loud, but sharp enough. Doyle hears it. His shoulders stiffen. His eyes drop to the floor. The judge's expression changes by a shade. The warmth stays, but the temperature drops. He turns back to Ethan. All right, he says, we've heard who your father is. Now I'd like you to answer my question properly. Ethan frowns. Didn't the clerk tell you? You know who my dad is. The judge doesn't blink. Son, he replies, voice edged with steel, I'm not asking who your father is. I'm asking who you are. The judge doesn't look impressed or rattled. He simply tilts his head as if shifting gears. Mr. Henderson, he says, let's forget about your father for a minute. How many times have you been pulled over for similar conduct? Ethan lifts one shoulder, that same lazy half shrug. I don't keep count, he says. Couple of times? They usually just tell me to slow down. The clerk, still standing by her desk, clears her throat. Your Honor, she says. There is supplemental history attached. He gestures. Bring it. She sets a thicker folder beside the slim citation packet. The cover is marked with colored tabs. The judge opens it, scans the first page, then the next. His brows come together, but his voice stays calm. 12 prior incidents, he reads. Speeding, loud exhaust, improper passing, all within the last 3 years, each marked warning issued or dismissed in chambers. The number lands in the room like a dropped wrench. No one gasps, but the air tightens. Ethan shifts his weight. Those weren't all me, he says quickly. Sometimes I'm just in the car. Half the time it's not even my vehicle. This one's a loaner. A loaner, the judge repeats. From whom? It's not in my name, Ethan says. It's registered to a company. I don't handle that stuff. The judge flips to the registration. He reads the header once, then again, a shade slower. According to this, he says, the car you were driving belongs to the Henderson Civic Leadership Foundation, a charitable entity your father controls, licensed for official use, outreach, events, that sort of thing. He looks up. The hum of the light seems louder now. Did you know that? He asks. Ethan stalls. I mean, I knew it was a foundation car. They told me it was fine to use it. It's just a car. In regular traffic, yes, the judge says evenly. But using a tax-advantaged vehicle for private joyrides is not what the state had in mind when it granted that status. He doesn't say the word fraud. He doesn't have to. The hint of something beyond a simple ticket hangs there, plain enough. Color creeps up Ethan's neck. The smirk that looked welded to his face an hour ago loosens. For the first time, he glances over his shoulder as if expecting to see his father appear and pull a lever to stop all this. Mr. Doyle leans toward the aisle, speaking almost under his breath, but the microphone catches it anyway. "That's why they think the rules are for the rest of us," he murmurs. A few heads nod in agreement. The judge turns slightly. "Mr. Doyle," he says, not unkindly, "I understand how you feel. Let me handle the commentary." Then, softer, "You've said something a lot of people here are thinking." The older man dips his head, chastened but heard. The judge returns his focus to Ethan. His tone isn't harsher, just stripped of any remaining warmth. "Young man," he says, "we're past the point of eye rolls and hand signs. You're standing in front of a room full of people who don't have foundations and don't get 12 free passes." He closes the thicker file with measured care. "From here on," he continues, "we're no longer treating this as a nuisance stop. We're going to treat it as what it is, a pattern. And I'm going to invite you, strongly, to try something new today." Ethan swallows. "What's that?" "Honesty," the judge says. "Once, on the record." Ethan reaches up, pulls off his sunglasses, sets them on the podium with a small click. Without the tinted lenses, his eyes look younger and far less sure of themselves. The judge rests his fingertips on the bench, voice almost conversational. "Mr. Henderson," he says, "you're aware that showing contempt for this court is its own offense, even when you think no one's looking?" Ethan frowns. "I didn't." A quiet click cuts him off. The overhead monitor blinks to life. Internal courtroom footage appears. The clerk at her desk, the judge reviewing a file, the side door opening. There's Ethan walking in. They watch, in real time, the moment he turns toward the clerk, mouth twisted in boredom, and slowly raises his hand. The middle finger is unmistakable. In the room, chairs creak, then go still. Someone murmurs, "Wow," under their breath. The clerk's face flushes faintly as she sees herself on the screen, sitting there, absorbing it in silence. The clip freezes on Ethan's gesture, then goes black. He swallows. "I was upset," he says, reaching for the old armor. "It was dumb. Just a sign. It's not like I hurt anyone." The judge regards him steadily. "That sign wasn't aimed at a system," he says. "It was aimed at a person doing her job. That matters." He picks up a different document, a sealed envelope already slit open. "Before we started," he adds, "this arrived in my chambers, from your father." Ethan straightens. "He wrote to you?" "In his official letterhead," the judge says. "He doesn't read verbatim, but he doesn't soften the message either. He says he has intervened too many times on your behalf, that he regrets it, and that if you come before me again, he asks, I not treat you more leniently because of his office. His words, not mine. If he disrespects the law, let the law teach him what I didn't." The color drains from Ethan's face. For a second, he's not the senator's son, just a young man hit from an angle he didn't see coming. "So, he asked you not to help me," he says, slowly. It's not anger in his voice. It's something closer to being dropped. Imagine for a moment thinking all your life that your father would burn every favor to pull you out of trouble. And the first time he writes to a judge, it's to step back. The judge doesn't gloat. "He asked me to do my job," he says, "which is what I intend to do." He turns a page in the file. "Do you remember where this speeding incident took place?" Ethan shrugs, but there's less swagger now. "Some street near the school," he mutters. I wasn't paying attention. I didn't crash into anybody. A hand goes up in the benches. A woman in a simple cardigan, lines of worry etched around her eyes. Your Honor? She asks. Go ahead, ma'am. That's our corner, she says. My grandson crosses there to get to first grade. That morning we were 2 minutes late because he couldn't find his shoe. She lets out a breath. If we hadn't been... She doesn't finish the sentence. She doesn't need to. I see cars fly through that stretch, she adds quietly. For them, it's a thrill. For us, it's whether a 7-year-old comes home. Ethan's gaze slides away. For the first time, the story in his head, nobody got hurt, meets the story in someone else's. The judge looks back at the paperwork, then at Ethan. Your father, he says, stood on this very courthouse step last year and called for tougher penalties in school zones. I remember the press conference. He said, no exceptions for violators. Our children deserve that. Ethan almost scoffs. That was politics, he says. Cameras, talking points. For you, maybe, the judge replies. For me, it's not politics. It's small bodies in big crosswalks. He lets that sit, then adds, more softly but with an edge, you thought that finger was aimed at me. It wasn't. It was aimed at everyone in this room who still wants to believe the rules don't bend for the well-connected. He closes the file halfway. Now, he says, we're going to talk about consequences, not for your surname, but for your choices. For a long beat, nobody speaks. You can almost feel the whole room waiting for a dollar amount. The judge pushes the folder with the fine schedule aside. I could follow the script, he says. Issue a stiff penalty, maybe suspend your license for a while. Someone in a suit would move numbers from one account to another. You'd complain about the hassle, and in a year this would be a half-funny story at a barbecue. He shakes his head once. That would waste both our time. Ethan blinks. So what are you going to do? I'm going to give you something you can't outsource, the judge answers. Your own discomfort. He folds his hands. First, he says, you're getting the full statutory sanction for speeding in a school zone. No discount. Your father helped write that law. He'll recognize the figure. A faint ripple moves through the gallery. Second, he continues, you will complete 40 hours of community work on that very corner, not in some abstract program. Right there, mornings when kids cross. You'll stand with the crossing guard, hold a sign, watch every car that does exactly what you did, and feel what it's like on the other side of the windshield. Ethan's mouth opens. You want me out there like some traffic volunteer? I want you where the consequences live, the judge says, not in a lecture hall. He isn't finished. Third, he adds, turning slightly toward the benches, you will attend a meeting with the parents from that school. You will sit, you will listen, and you will not speak until they're done. They've been background extras in your life. For once, you will be the one in the cheap chair. That lands harder than any figure on a piece of paper. Ethan's voice comes out sharper than he means. You're trying to make a spectacle out of me, to knock me down in front of them. The judge's tone stays level. No, I'm putting you on their level. There's a difference. He pauses, then adds one more condition. You will also write letters, he says. 2. One to the officer you dismissed at the roadside. One to this grandmother here. He nods to the woman in the cardigan, apologizing not in hashtags, but in sentences. You will hand those to my clerk. I will decide whether they remain private or become part of the public file. Ethan's jaw tightens. You can't force me to humiliate myself. I'm not interested in humiliation, the judge replies. I'm interested in alignment, bringing your attitude into line with the weight of your actions. Something cracks in Ethan's posture. The anger drains, leaving something raw. You don't get it, he blurts. Everybody wants something from me. Be perfect for the cameras. Don't embarrass the campaign. Smile for the donors. Now you want me to be some model citizen for these people too. The judge leans in, elbows on the bench. I don't care if you're polished, he says. I care if you're accountable. Those are not the same assignment. Ethan stares at the grain of the podium. If I go along with this, he says quietly, it's like saying, I'm the problem. Not the cameras, not the press. Me. Maybe, the judge says. That's the first true thing you'll have said about yourself in a long time. The words hang there. No one rushes to fill the silence. At last, Ethan draws a breath that seems to come from further down than his lungs. When he speaks, the bravado is gone. Fine, he says. Then, correcting himself, no, not fine. But I'll do it. All of it. Not because I'm scared of what you can do to me, but because, for the first time, I'm scared of what I might do if nothing changes. The judge nods once, as if accepting terms of a serious contract. We'll meet again after you've kept every part of this, he says. Bring proof, and bring whoever you've become by then. A few weeks later, it's another routine morning on the docket. Meters, taillights, the small grind of city life, when the clerk leans toward the bench. Your Honor, Mr. Henderson is here. He's not on today's list, but he asked to be heard. The judge looks up. There he is near the back, not at the front table. No suit, no slogan on his chest, just a plain shirt, hands empty. No entourage, no mother, no aide. He walks forward when called, a little too upright for someone who thinks this is a game. I don't recall signing a new summons, the judge says mildly. What brings you back, Ethan? You said to come when it was done, he replies. I figured you meant more than receipts. The judge nods to the clerk. Let's start with the basics. She reads from the new notes. Community service hours documented. Presence at school crossing on 12 mornings, signed off by Officer Lang. Attendance at parent safety meeting confirmed. The paper sounds loud in the quiet room. Ethan glances toward the woman in the cardigan. I stood out there where your grandson walks, he says. First day, a boy looked at my vest and said, my dad says politicians do whatever they want. Are you really here to help, or just for a picture? He gives a faint, humorless smile. Hard explaining to a 7-year-old that nobody asked for a camera. He talks about a mother who came up after the meeting, eyes red from a long week, telling him, when you see this corner, don't see a shortcut. See my kid's face. I thought all that would feel like punishment, he admits. But it was the first time in a long time people spoke to me like I was just another adult who owed them an answer, not a symbol, not a problem to manage. He unfolds a creased page from his pocket. My father sent this after he heard what you ordered. He doesn't read it word for word, just the bones. His father writes that for years he made calls, smoothed over messes, mistaking protection for love. That stepping back this time was the hardest choice, and to his surprise, the one he's most proud of, that he'd rather have a son who faces a hard morning in court than one who never learns what he can be without a safety net. It's the first letter he's written me that wasn't about college applications or schedules, Ethan says quietly. I needed a judge to get my own father to talk to me straight. The judge studies him for a moment. Do you still see those school zone signs as suggestions? He asks. Ethan shakes his head. Now they look like promises adults make to kids they've never met, he says. I don't want to be the one who breaks that. The judge's mouth twists into the shadow of a smile. I sit up here and hear a lot of, do you know who my father is? He says. The question that matters to me is different. Who are you when nobody's announcing your name? He signs the order that closes the case, then sets his pen down. The law can't reach into your chest and turn you into a saint, he says. What it can do once in a while is stop you long enough that you decide to become better than you were. He nods toward the gallery. If one day you find yourself in your father's chair instead of at this podium, remember less this hearing and more that child at the crosswalk. He won't care what office you hold. He'll just need you to slow down. Ethan inclines his head, not to play a part this time, but in simple acknowledgement, and steps away from the microphone. As he leaves, he doesn't head for a side door. He joins the same line as everyone else. Mr. Doyle with his worn envelope, the grandmother with her shopping bag. No one steps aside for him, and he doesn't expect them to. For the first time, his last name trails behind him instead of clearing the path.